Welcome back to Grandma Olivia's Corner. We're going to continue with a few more chapters, and here's Hank, chapter 3. On Saturday morning, we brought all our bags down to the lobby where Papa Pete and Frankie were waiting for us. "Thanks for letting us borrow your car, Papa Pete," I said. "My pleasure," he answered, handing the keys to my dad. "I filled it up with gas so you're ready to roll." "Are you sure this car can make the trip?" he asked. "I don't want it to break down on the side of the highway." "This old car loves the highway," Papa Pete said. "I've taken it on a lot of road trips." "That's my point," my dad said. "Who knows if it has one more road trip in it? So why take a chance? Let's forget the trip and all go to a Saturday afternoon movie. What do you kids say?" "I say camping." Then I started to chant, "Camping, camping, camping." Frankie and Emily joined in. My mom laughed. It looked like my father was going to cry. "Seems like you have your answer, Stan," my mom said. "Let's load up the car and go." We all helped put our stuff in the trunk. When it was almost full, my dad suddenly stopped and slapped his forehead. "Wait a minute," he said. "I can't go. What about Cheerio? I have to take care of him. He's just a puppy." "Remember that Miss Fink in apartment 10C has agreed to walk and feed Cheerio twice a day?" my mom said. "But what happens if she can't find her false teeth? She won't leave her apartment." "That happened once, and we didn't see her for 3 days." "No, I can't risk that. I'm staying home with Cheerio. Have a great time, everyone." He ran into the lobby. I followed him and found him pushing the elevator button over and over again. "Dad, you just gave me a great idea," I said. "We'll take Cheerio. It'll be the best adventure of his little puppy life." "You can't take a dog onto the wilderness," my dad said as the elevator doors opened. "Of course you can," I said as we got in the elevator. "They're animals. They love wilderness." I don't stop talking until we're inside our apartment. "Cheerio," I called. "Want to go on a road trip?" Cheerio jumped off the couch and almost flew into my arms. "See?" I said to my dad. "He wants to go. How can we say no to this face?" Cheerio looked over at my dad, and I swear he smiled right at him. That cute doggy smile can even melt my dad's heart. "Fine," he said, sighing deeply. "I'll let Miss Fink know that we're going. Hank, get Cheerio's things together." Everyone cheered when he came out of the building with Cheerio. Emily reached out and scratched Cheerio under the chin. "You are not as cute as my Catherine, and you can't catch flies with your tongue. But I'm glad you're coming along anyway." My mom hugged Dad and smiled. "You did the right thing, Stan," she said. "You'll see. We're going to have a great time." My dad just grunted like a hippo stuck in the mud. We piled into the car. As I was getting in, Papa Pete handed me a brown paper bag. "Here's a little surprise for you kids," he said. I didn't have to open the bag to know what was inside. It was pickles, Papa Pete's favorite snack. We always have a pickle together when we've got a big problem to solve. "I brought a pickle for each of you kids," he said. Just don't let Cheerio get them." "Thanks, Papa Pete," we all said. Frankie calls Papa Pete too, even though he's not his grandfather. "See you tomorrow," my mom called to Papa Pete. "Don't forget to put on a bug spray," he replied as he waved goodbye. We took off. Mom and Dad sat up front. The 3 of us were in the back seat. Well, make that the 4 of us because I had Cheerio on my lap. As we drove out of the city, Frankie, Emily, and I played this game where you count red cars. By the time we were an hour out of the city, I had counted 43. Or maybe it was 61. My brain isn't very good at keeping track of numbers. I don't think Cheerio likes the car ride, Frankie said as we sped along the highway. He keeps breathing in my face, and his breath smells like pickles. Pickles, I whispered. Oh, no. Cheerio, you didn't. You better check the bag fast, Frankie said. I reached down and felt around on the back seat for the paper bag. The top was chewed open. That wasn't a good sign. When I looked inside, the signs were even less good. There was just an empty plastic wrapper, some pickle juice floating around in it. Dad, I said, I think we have to pull over. I'd rather not, my dad answered. We're almost there. I think it's pretty important, Mr. Z, Frankie said. Cheerio needs to use the restroom. In a very pickle kind of way. What's that supposed to mean, my dad asked. He's going to barf, Dad, Emily said. My dad pulled the car over to the side of the road faster than you can say pickle chunks. My dad just stood by the side of the road holding his head in his hands. This is going to be okay, Dad, I said, trying to cheer him up. Hank, any trip that starts with a dog throwing up is not going to go well. And you know what? He wasn't all wrong. Chapter 4. When Cheerio was feeling better, we piled back into the car. My father warned us that we were not stopping anymore until we got to the campsite. My mom was holding a map and looking for the right exit. Oh, there it is, she said, pointing to a faded wooden sign on the side of the highway. It says Harmony Acres right next right. Good work, Mom, I said. I'd be more comfortable if it were a big sign with blinking lights that said the way to the city, my dad said. Now, Stan. My mom was using her extra calm voice, the one she uses when I've forgotten my lunch for the third day in a row. We're in nature. They don't want to clutter up the view with flashy signs. What view, my dad said. All I see is trees and sky. That's the point, Dad, Emily said. We're out here exploring nature. Yeah, I said. It's just as the bears. Bears? What bears? My dad asked. We're heading down the highway ramp past the Harmony Acres sign. The car came to a sudden stop. Don't worry, Mr. Z, Frankie piped up. I read that if we keep our food tied up in a tree, the bears won't come into the camp. Oh, look, my dad said, pointing to a few buildings out the window. How sweet, my mom said. It's a cute little general store. I'm not looking at the store, my dad said. I'm looking at what's connected to it. The Half Moon Motel. We could pull right in. Set up our tent in the middle of the room. I bet it's got cable TV and no bears. But Dad, I said, I'm not supposed to write a poem about the inside of a motel room. My poem is about what it's like to be outside. Come on, Stan, my mom said. Nothing bad is going to happen to us. We're going to make a family memory. For the 20th time that morning, my dad sighed. I couldn't believe he had that much air in him. He turned right into a dirt road. It seemed like we were on the road forever. We passed some farms with real live cows munching on grass. Okay, everybody, my dad called out. Roll up the windows and let you enjoy the smell of cow poop, which I don't. For the first time that morning, I totally agreed with him. The cow poop smell was hanging around the inside of my nose like stinky cheese. After we passed the farms, we headed up a hill with trees on both sides of the road. Some of the trees had white bark and others looked like Christmas trees. Maybe I'll write a poem about a tree, I said. I opened my mouth and this flew out. I see you, you big round tree. I see you're much, much taller than me. Hey, I did it. I shouted. It rhymes and everything. Did I just do my homework? You sure did, Hank. My dad said, this was certainly a great idea coming out here to nature. Now let's go home. If Hank wrote that here in the car, Emily said, imagine what he can come up with when we're actually sleeping under the stars. I can't wait to see our campsite, what our campsite looks like, Frankie said. I hope there's a fire pit so we can make s'mores. I've read all the brochures, my mom said. It sounds like it has everything we're going to need, except a heater, a bed, a refrigerator, and a TV, my dad muttered. We drove the rest of the way without talking, just looking out the window. The road got smaller, the trees got taller, and the clouds got darker. You don't think it's going to rain, do you? My dad said. Because I don't do well in mud. I checked the weather forecast before we left, my mom said. There was no mention of rain. We passed a red and white sign that I couldn't read, but Frankie could. Fire danger, he said, pointing to it. My mom put her finger to her lips and made the shh sound. Then she pointed to my dad. Oh, Frankie whispered to her. We drove around a big bend in the road, and at last, there it was, Harmony Acres. Let me just say, it was not exactly what we were expecting. There was a cabin at the entrance that only had 3 walls. The fourth one was lying in pieces on the ground next to it. I looked through the trees to see if I could find any other cabins. Nope, there weren't any. There were just a bunch of wooden platforms scattered around. There was a gravel parking lot, but it didn't have any cars in it. Oh, isn't this wonderful? My mom said in her extra calm voice. Looks like we'll have the place all to ourselves. From out of nowhere, a man appeared and walked up to our car. He was wearing a black and red checkered shirt and baggy jeans with suspenders. His gray beard was so long it practically touched his knees. Howdy, folks, he said with a big smile. I'm Jed Presley, no relation to Elvis. I'm the groundskeeper here. It's good to see you. We don't get many visitors this time of year. Bug season, you know. Oh, so that's why Papa Pete told us to take bug spread, I said. Where do we set up our tent, my mom asked. Anywhere you don't see bear tracks, he answered. My dad gasped so loud, I'm sure that everyone in China heard him. Just pulling your leg, Jed laughed, punching my dad on the arm. We don't have any bears here. We got a family of possums. You'll see them walking down to the lake after dark. Possums? My dad asked. I don't like the sound of that. They're like big rats. They're not rodents, Dad, Emily said. They're marsupials. Did you know that they have thumbs on their back feet? Thumbs on their back feet, I said. Aren't those called toes? Frankie cracked up. But Emily, the little know-it-all, didn't even smile. Hank, she groaned, you don't know anything about animal science. Well, I don't know about trees, I said. I happen to have written a poem about them, and I say, let's set up our tent on that platform over there under that big old tree. You folks have a great time, Jed said. Camping out is good family fun. We'll get in touch with you if we need anything, my dad said. You know that? Jed said. I'll be back in the morning. Wait, you're not staying here, my dad said. I'm picking up supplies in town, Jed answered. Remember, safety first. Put out your fire before you go to sleep, and be sure to tie your food up in a tree so that critters don't get to it. Could you please not say critters, my dad said? But Jed was already walking away. We unloaded the car. Everyone had the responsibility of carrying their own bag, except for Cheerio. All he had to carry was a little tennis ball with a bell in it. Dad carried the tent. When we got all our gear onto the wooden platform, we heard a buzzing sound. We looked in every direction and saw nothing. Then we looked up. Tucked in the top of branches of the tree was a gray basket like a thing with a small opening at the bottom. It looked like it was made of thread, and it was buzzing. Wow, Emily said, a nest of yellow jackets. I've almost wanted to see one. I always wanted to see one. We all looked up and saw lots of yellow jackets flying in and out of the nest. My dad's eyes grew as big as flying saucers. Yellow jackets, he said. Aren't they like bees? Don't they sting? Well, of course they do, Dad, Emily said. It's how they defend themselves. I've read that they won't bother us if we don't bother them, my mom said. I could tell Mom was trying to keep him calm. Well, they're not going to bother me, my dad said, because I'm out of here. And without waiting for any of us, he took off running as fast as he could. I hope you come back later for more episodes and more chapters to read of Here's Hank.